The Dearborn Independent, August 19th, 1922, 22nd year, number 43. Mr. Ford's page. When nations dislike each other, as more and more the recently allied nations are doing now, it is not due to anything the people have done or planned. It is due to something that has been done in their name by men who had no order to do it. Between the nations are the Internationalists. Contrary to the indication of their name, they are not engaged in cementing the nations together, but in driving them farther apart. They have stolen a name that enables them to operate under false pretenses. They are the sowers of misunderstanding and dissension. They are the explanation of all that confuses and surprises the plain people of all the countries. Once they're seen and understood, in a worldwide understanding, the time of trouble is past. The people shall know the truth then, and the truth shall make them free. In reading the European press, we frequently come upon the headlines, "Our Debt to America," "What We Owe to America," and similar titles. The first reaction on seeing these words is a wisp of grateful feeling. To think that anywhere in the world there are those who esteem us highly enough to consider themselves in our debt is very pleasant. We ourselves are conscious of an unexpressed feeling among us that we have not been regarded with special admiration or gratitude by our sister nations. The headlines, therefore, at first sight give us a pleasurable half-moment. But upon reading further, we find that Europe has no thought of a sentimental debt, and certainly no thought of welling gratitude towards us, much as the official speeches of calculating statesmen would try to give the contrary opinion. Every newspaper article, headed as above, discusses money, nothing but money. As we read the articles, we learn that America, that is, the United States, is seen in the role of a troublesome creditor, concerning whom the general attitude is anything but pleasant and hardly respectful. In common with the rest of the world, our American people are kept in constant state of misinformation concerning their own business. A part of their business is their relationship with their nation neighbors on either side of the sea. Yet, it is most conservatively true that we are allowed to know less about those relations than anything else. We are told, of course, as all the nations are told, that we are fully informed. But now that they know how they were treated, even worse than the Germans in the matter of information during the war, now that they know how they were victimized by concealment and propagandized by manufactured falsehood from beginning to the end of the war, the people have reluctantly found it necessary to look for confirmation before they accept public announcements. The fact is, we're badly regarded abroad, but on this page that statement is not made with the usual purpose. The purpose is not to give information, not to store resentment against those whom we may think ought to be grateful. The first is the purpose of the publicist, and the second is the purpose of the agents of hostility. To tell Americans that their name and their nation are disliked abroad is not enough. To tell only that much of the truth is as bad as to tell an untruth. The fact itself rouses resentment and imperceptibly enlarges the ground for further misunderstanding and grudges. What ought to be told is that why of the dislike and who caused it. The common people of all the nation awake and wonder when they hear how they are regarded abroad. What have they done to merit dislike? What have they done to arouse hatred? What have they done to cause suspicion? They ask themselves these questions, and their conscience absolves them. They have done nothing amiss. They have conspired against no one. But tempers can be roused in them, and things can be done in their name that portend disaster. What the people do not understand is that for the group behind the governments, the last war was a business matter. People resented being told that because they knew that they regarded the war as an infinitely higher experience than a mere business matter, and for them it was. The spirituality of the principles at stake rose to such a height of power that it would have destroyed the cunning behind the war if it had been permitted to grow. But it was nipped just as it became threatening to the forces of darkness and was forced back into a bitter reaction. That is the cause of the sense of futility that holds the middle of the people today. But the fact that the war was a business matter led to transactions which the people would never have approved. It led to terms that the generosity of the plain man's mind would have scorned. The plain man could fight in the name of his country, but he could have no control whatever over the other things that were done in his name. When he emerged from the war, he found himself compromised nationally in the hundred of ways. And out of the stupid mess, all that he can see is misunderstanding and possible future struggles. That is how it was done, not by the people, but in the name of the people, by groups who knew exactly what they wanted and what they were doing to get it. The people are thus blamed not only for something that they did not do, but for something that they wouldn't do, for something that entirely misrepresents what they think ought to be done. And when the misunderstandings thus created grow strong enough to break out into a war again, the men who caused the misunderstanding will simply step aside and let the people fight it out. Thus, in their innocence and their simple-hearted belief that official men are good men and that official intentions are good intentions, the people are led from pillar to post. They are made responsible for attitudes that they have never dreamed of, and they are made to bear the blame for actions which they cannot even understand. It is a fearful network of evil that has been spun around the people by the waves of darkness, and the rending of it will be light work when once the people clearly perceive. There are men abroad now, in the name of the United States, proposing without any authority from the government or people of the United States things which the people would never perform if they could prevent it. These men are financiers. They are not statesmen, save as statesmanship has become a clerkship in international finance. They are not humanists, they are not even nationalists. They love no country. One of them has borne citizenship in at least 3 countries in his lifetime. They have nothing to stand upon but money. They have nothing to recommend them but money. They have nothing to work with but money. And even this money is not their own. It is the money focused upon them by the big banks and the small banks all over the world, the money of the people themselves. That is the indictment that condemns the present international financial system, that it uses the money of the people to bind the people. Without love, without pity, even without responsibility, these influences shuttle back and forth across the world, spawning their tricks, using the press, dominating parliaments and privy councils, getting the heirs of thrones into their debt, even fastening superstitious belief upon the church to further their ends, suppressing and destroying the men who have eyes to see and hearts courageous enough to speak, and setting nations against nations. There are men who hope for wrecks at sea, that they might enrich themselves with the water-soaked spoil. It is hard for the honest heart of the common people to believe it, and perhaps their knowledge of it or belief is not necessary to its correction. But there are men who hope for national wrecks, and world wrecks too, that they may enrich themselves with the blood-stained spoils. In every nation, the propaganda of international distrust is now being worked. It is true that the peoples are being estranged from each other. It is true that they're becoming suspicious of each other. Let each nation, let Americans too, acknowledge that they're disliked. But let us ask, who made us disliked? Who did the things that made us disliked? Let every nation make similar examination in its own race, and then the secret not only of war, but the secret of peace also will be out.